All right, we are live here on this week's edition of Hits, brought to you by Broadway Sports Media. I am Jonathan Boren at JB on Broad. With me is Mike Herndon at Mike Miracles. Mike, just jumping right into it. So we go into halftime. It is 17-9, as we do every single week. We'll start with the offense. What are your initial thoughts on how the offense is performing?
Overall, I think the offense is moving the ball pretty well. Tannehill hasn't been as sharp as he was last week. The interception, obviously, an underthrow. I thought the receiver, Westbrook Akeen, I think you pronounce the name, was open. I mean, he had his man. You saw what Tannehill was looking at there. He just simply underthrew that one. So the offense has moved the ball okay. Obviously, red zone has been an issue, which is extremely rare for this team. They led the NFL in red zone last year. They were really high through 2 weeks in that category this year. So that's something that has been very uncharacteristic of them, but that's really what's biting them. I mean, they've gotten down into the scoring area. They just haven't cashed in.
Yeah, as we've said for their last 9 games or so, their reliance on field goals is just really just an issue. I mean that in jest. Obviously, this is the first time that we kind of see things go back to being a normal NFL team with them having 3 field goals, and that's their only scoring opportunity. I already see it in the chat here that they got to score touchdowns, and that's correct. That's kind of a theme here that the Vikings have had their opportunities and they've cashed in with 2 touchdowns. Titans have moved the ball. It hasn't been terrible on offense. My initial thoughts on offense, though, the Vikings have stayed ahead of the chains. They've kept moving it. They haven't had many negative plays. They've had the 1 sack of Kirk Cousins. They have gotten some pressure on him, but it has not been a situation where the Vikings are constantly in second and third and long, which opens up your playbook. The Titans have moved the ball pretty effectively, but outside of that, they've had several negative plays, not just the interception, but several plays with the end arounds that get stopped. Henry got stopped on a tackle for loss. Some of them they've been able to make up for, but overall, it's just putting your offense in a bad situation where you're having to overcome constantly these third and long situations. So it's putting the offense in a bad situation. And yeah, obviously, the pendulum was going to swing back at some point. They weren't going to be the best red zone offense every single week of every single game. And so you're kind of seeing that. Now, the game's not over. I mean, it is. I am the one that picked the Vikings to win this game, so I will fall on that sword right now. But at the same time, they're still in striking distance. This opening drive for the Vikings coming out is probably going to be really key for how they move forward here. And that kind of swings it over to what we've been seeing from the defense, which is probably what everybody wants to talk about. They're giving up 17 points. You've seen some things coming out of last week where they gave up almost 500 yards of offense. What are your thoughts on the defense so far?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of the same from last week. It just does not seem like the defense is in sync with each other. There's a lot of uncharacteristic, and this is going back to the last couple years under Vrabel. It's been uncharacteristic to see them really missing assignments and gaps in the run game. It's been uncharacteristic to see them having so much confusion on the back end. I feel like the hook curl zone is just wide open at all times with this defense right now, and that's. I know a lot of people are all over Malcolm Butler right now, and he didn't have a perfect first half, but he made some really good plays there at the end of the half. I thought the long ball to Jefferson down the sidelines, that's about as good as you can cover that play. Sometimes receivers make plays. So I didn't think Malcolm Butler was quite awful in the first half. It wasn't a good first half overall for the Titans defense, though. Just not enough pressure, and just kind of leaving some layups on the field. I feel like constant layups there for the Vikings offense.
Yeah, and I'll be a little more critical of Butler. That one play down the sideline, obviously that was a great play by Jefferson, but does Jefferson make that play if you're not letting him get into the groove that he's been in? You always talk about giving these young players that chance to make those easy catches, those easy throws when you're talking about quarterbacks. So he's been making those easy catches, and so at that point, you're kind of feeling it. You get in that rhythm there. So there have been those plays that he has been giving up. Obviously, I've been leading the bandwagon that he probably needs to be moved into the slot at this point. He'll play physical, which is why I think the missed tackle on Thielen that once again gave up another 8 yards or so, puts them in a second and short situation, was one of the most egregious misses on this half, because that's something he's got to be able to do. He's got to be that physical guy that, cool, even if they make the catch, okay, they go down right there. And so when he starts missing tackles, then there's an issue there. And so, you you say what it is. I mean, he may not be a shutdown corner, but at the same time, he's matched up with a rookie almost this entire game. Even if you're not a shutdown corner, you don't want to be the guy getting picked on by a rookie the entire first half. And right now, Justin Jefferson's on pace for over 200 yards. So there's got to be some corrections there. But like you said, it's not a one-man show. One thing I will say in defense of the defense is that actually I think the pressure has been better this game. I think you're seeing those even on the one big pass breakup that Malcolm Butler had. It was he had two, but the one that was going to Thielen in the corner of the end zone, it was something that it was an underthrown ball because of pressure in Cousins' face. So I do think the good news is you're starting to see more pressure on the quarterback that's affecting the entire defense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Jeffery Simmons has particularly been impressive. Obviously, he had the sack. I think they credited him with the sack on that first drive, which they should have. But yeah, I think he's been impactful on the inside. You've seen some edge pressure as well. There's things to like about it. It's just, overall the Vikings made more plays in that first half. And I mean, we talked about it last game. The Titans were up 24-10 at halftime, and the last game ended up coming down to a last-second field goal to win it. This game is by no means over. A lot of football to be played. Obviously, you'd like to see some things get cleaned up and adjusted, and that's going to be on the Titans coaching staff to make those adjustments at halftime here.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those that this opening drive is going to be that kind of key drive that they come out here. You talk about the ebb and flow of a game. With them not having the left tackle, we'll talk about that here in just a second. With Taylor Lewan being out, you've seen some of these obvious passing situations where Ngakoue has gotten an advantage over Tyler Sembralo. I'm not going to attempt to say I'm saying it correctly. It's one of those two. It's one of those that you don't want to get in that situation where you're in that pass heavy offense. That's just not who they are. So this opening drive is going to be really key on how they come out. And if they can get a stop there, then yeah, it's right back in it. If they come out and they're able to put a touchdown on the board, they being the Vikings in this situation, it's going to put the Titans kind of behind the eight ball from what they've wanted to do historically. So let's talk about Lewan. How worried are you about Lewan being out?
I mean, pretty worried. I will say that Sembralo he did get beat by Ngakoue, I think, a couple of times. But overall, he hasn't been terrible. I mean, this isn't a Will Spitek situation over there. So, long term, very worried. The rest of this game, I think the Titans can climb back into this game without Lewan. I don't think it's a shut it down, it's over kind of deal.
Yeah, one of the things I would like to see coming out on offense the next time they get the ball is to see somebody like a Darrington Evans get involved in the screen game. They've got a couple passes out there to Derrick Henry, and obviously this is his first game, but you can script up a couple of plays to get somebody like that involved. And it's something that obviously they haven't seen on film. He's supposed to be this electric guy that you can have a couple of plays in the playbook. So I would really like to see something like that. Those are the kind of plays that are going to slow down that pass rush, because I think Ngakoue is kind of feeling it right now, coming off that edge. So I think there are some plays to be had there. That said, the Vikings are probably having this exact same conversation. I think those plays are there. Tannehill hasn't been as hot as he has been the last few weeks. The one good thing about with your left tackle being out, having quarterback play that Tannehill has had is something that covers up for some offensive line play. Tom Brady did it for years, and I'm not saying Tannehill's playing at that kind of level, but there were years that Taylor Lewan going out, pretty much shut it down. They're in a better position to overcome something like that. It's still a loss, but they do have the ability that's not just a complete backbreaker. On defense, I mean, I think I'd like to see something like, again, Malcolm Butler move to the slot. You have Christian Fulton out there. Give him his shot. I think I'd like to see more just straight up man coverage, but in the end, they just got to execute on some things. They're not doing their fundamentals the correct way. You're seeing missed tackles, Kevin Byard missing it on the Dalvin Cook long touchdown. So they just got to clean up some of those plays. Don't put themselves behind the eight ball. And frankly, when you're rolling, keep rolling. The Khalif Raymond end arounds, those kinds of plays, even if you're going to run them, that has to be coached that, hey, you can't have negative 5 yards on this. Worst case scenario, take your 1 yard loss, line up and play again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that I thought was a little bit too cute. They need to get Corey Davis going. They need to get Johnny Smith going. I'm like you. I wouldn't mind seeing some Darrington Evans in the screen game. There's some plays to be had against this Vikings defense. I still think you're going to see the Titans move the ball in the second half. They just got to convert more of these in the red zone, and that's something they've historically been very good at over the past 2 years. So I'm not terribly worried on the offensive side of the ball right now.
Perfect. Well, that will do it for this week's edition of Halftime Hits. Stay tuned for second half. Mike, what are your predictions? How's it going to wind up?
I think it's going to end up coming down to a game-winning field goal, one side or the other. That's the way these games go, right?
Good Lord, not another one. It's just written that way. It's got to be for the Titans. I think the Vikings are going to unfortunately end up pulling this one out, but I think that the Titans will fight back. They're not a quitting team by any means, but I did pick the Vikings because I thought they would have this kind of letdown game at some point, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing. But hopefully, for everybody out there, hopefully I'm wrong on that. So, and I'll totally eat crow on it. So thanks for joining in this week, and also join in on the post-game show. We'll have lots of guys there. And then also check out BroadwaySportsMedia.com for interesting content throughout the week. Appreciate it, everybody.